You've been a Hollywood insider for so long, yet you've been vocal for so long. I mean, how challenging is it to see your colleagues across Hollywood lacking for the Obama administration when they have so much power and influence that they could single-handedly shape the dialogue when so many people are watching them?
Well, I think that, this is a culture of fear, and nobody's more afraid than people in Hollywood. They're afraid that they'll drop out of the top, they're afraid that they'll drop from the bottom of the pyramid, maybe to the middle of the pyramid. But they're the ones. Hollywood is the one that keeps all this power structure and all this culture of racism and sexism and classism and genderism and all of it in place. They continually feed it, and they make a lot of money doing it, and they do it at the behest of their masters who run everything. So, they're not going to get brave enough to do that. I mean, I think that there aren't many of us who are brave enough to do that. And I'm just, I'm lucky that I can do it, and I feel that I do it on behalf of many people in Hollywood too. I go to Hollywood parties, or occasionally I go to Oscar parties and things like that, and people, big stars, people will grab me by the arm and take me aside and say, "I just want to thank you for the things you say." And it blows my mind, but that's the culture. It's a culture of fear for sure. And it's a big culture of mind control too. MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood. If you don't know, Google that and look into it.
Well, we've talked about Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra mind control stuff from, this goes back decades and decades. But Roseanne, do you know people have been blacklisted? Is it just kind of a self-censorship in Hollywood, or do people actually get edged out if they are too much against the grain?
Yeah, it's self-censorship after a while, but it's not just a crazy self-censorship. It's self-censorship because there's actually a danger that you will never work again. And people know it. Everybody has friends that it happened to, that maybe you said too much, or maybe you were too vocal on unpopular issues. And it's funny because it doesn't matter if 2 years later, I find this a lot, that 2 years later those unpopular issues become very mainstream. They still don't forgive the first person who does it. And that's kind of been my story there. When you're first, you're going to be vilified, despite the fact that 2 years later everybody's saying what you said. You're still going to be vilified because you dared. And like they say, the Chinese, the Chinese have a myth or a saying that says the nail that stands up is hammered down, and that's how it is here and everywhere in the world. Right. You don't really want to put yourself at odds with people who decide your future and pay for your work. But sometimes you have to. And I was very lucky that I had a successful show that made me a lot of money, and so that I can do that. And I feel that I owe that to the people I came from, to say those things that maybe they can't say because they're afraid they'll be fired, or they're afraid even that they'll be put in jail or whatever. I'm going to do it because why not?
I know that you were also a supporter of Occupy Wall Street, which unfortunately was violently suppressed by militarized police forces all across the country. And Roseanne, I tell people that everything we do every day is political. Every action we take is a vote, essentially. Any more words of advice you can give to people who are watching this and saying, there's nothing that can be done and we don't have a voice?
Well, I'd say that's not true. There's so much that can be done, and don't stop now, because we've put a crack in it, and now the light will get in. So don't stop now, whatever you do. Don't stop. And they talk about Occupy Wall Street and this and that and the other, but it needs a reboot, like everything having to do with resisting a country being owned by banksters and both parties of its government being owned by banksters. There's no way we can turn our back or quiet down now. It'll only get worse.